A recent interview featuring conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has generated unexpected international attention after she described the conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza as proxy wars fought on behalf of Western interests. Her comments have drawn both criticism and surprising support from an unlikely source, the Russian embassy in London, creating a complex diplomatic situation that highlights the ongoing tensions surrounding the war in Ukraine.
An enemy of this country, Israel, is fighting a proxy war on behalf of the UK, just like Ukraine is on behalf of the West of Western Europe against Russia. We have to get serious. We have to get serious. There was a terrorist plot in London against the Israeli embassy. We saw 2 Jewish members of the Israeli embassy in DC killed. Whose side are we on?
Now, this wasn't just a throwaway comment. Badenoch went further, connecting these conflicts to recent security threats closer to home. She highlighted the terror plot against the Israeli embassy in London and referenced the shocking killing of an Israeli couple linked to the embassy in Washington. These examples, she suggested, demonstrate how these distant conflicts have direct implications for Western security. The term proxy war itself is significant here. In international relations, this describes conflicts where smaller countries or groups fight while being backed by and serving the interests of larger powers. It's not necessarily a controversial concept in academic circles, but when applied to Ukraine, a country fighting for its very survival against Russian aggression, the terminology becomes much more politically charged. Here's where things get really interesting. The Russian embassy in London didn't just ignore Badenoch's comments, they actively promoted them on their social media platforms. In what can only be described as an unusual diplomatic move, the embassy shared the clip of Badenoch's interview with their own commentary. Their statement read, "Kemi Badenoch has finally called a spade a spade. Ukraine is indeed fighting a proxy war against Russia on behalf of Western interests. The illegitimate Kiev regime, created, financed and armed by the West, has been at it since 2014. This endorsement from Moscow puts Badenoch in an awkward position. It's one thing to make analytical comments about geopolitical conflicts, but it's quite another to find those same comments being used as propaganda by the very country she was implicitly criticizing. The Russian embassy didn't stop there. They made additional claims about former Prime Minister Boris Johnson's role in the conflict, suggesting that he visited Ukraine when peace was at hand and encouraged them to continue fighting. This narrative, while lacking credible evidence, reflects ongoing Russian propaganda efforts to blame the West for prolonging the conflict. The reality is quite different. Johnson visited Ukraine in March 2022, just weeks after Russian forces had launched their unprovoked assault on Kiev. He was actually the first Western leader to visit Ukraine after Russia's illegal invasion in February 2022. His push for sanctions and coordinated Western response to Russian aggression has been widely praised as one of the defining moments of his premiership. The embassy's characterization of this visit as somehow preventing peace negotiations conveniently ignores the fact that Russia had already launched a full-scale invasion with the apparent intent of overthrowing Ukraine's democratically elected government. Badenoch's response, standing firm on democratic values. So how has Badenoch responded to finding herself quoted approvingly by Russian diplomats? Well, she's unlikely to lose sleep over it. This is the same politician who has previously stated she wouldn't be afraid to call Russian President Vladimir Putin a dictator. Her position becomes even clearer when we look at her previous statements defending Ukrainian President Zelensky. When the Trump administration controversially used the term dictator to describe Zelensky earlier this year, Badenoch was quick to push back. On social media platform X, she wrote, "President Zelensky is not a dictator. He is the democratically elected leader of Ukraine who bravely stood up to Putin's illegal invasion." She continued, "Under my leadership and under successive conservative prime ministers, we have and always will stand with Ukraine." This statement demonstrates that while Badenoch may use analytical terms like proxy war, her fundamental position remains firmly supportive of Ukraine's fight for independence. This entire episode highlights something crucial about modern conflict: the battle for narrative control. Russia's decision to amplify Badenoch's comments isn't really about agreeing with a British conservative politician. It's about weaponizing those words to support their own propaganda narrative. By promoting the proxy war framing, Russia seeks to delegitimize Ukraine's struggle as something other than a genuine fight for national survival. If they can convince international audiences that Ukraine is merely a Western puppet fighting someone else's war, it becomes easier to justify their own aggression as a defensive measure against Western expansion. This is why terminology matters so much in international relations. The same analytical framework can be twisted to serve completely different political purposes, depending on who's doing the interpreting. So, what should we make of all this? Badenoch's original point about proxy conflicts isn't entirely without merit from an analytical standpoint. Modern warfare often does involve larger powers supporting smaller allies in conflicts that serve broader strategic interests. The question is whether this framework accurately captures the full reality of what's happening in Ukraine. Ukraine's fight is simultaneously a struggle for national survival and a conflict with broader implications for Western security. While Western support has been crucial, characterizing it purely as a proxy war risks diminishing Ukraine's own agency and the genuine threat that Russian expansion poses to European security. The fact that Russia eagerly promoted Badenoch's comments should serve as a reminder of how carefully political leaders must choose their words when discussing ongoing conflicts. In an era of information warfare, even analytical observations can become ammunition in someone else's propaganda campaign. What do you think? Do Badenoch's comments represent legitimate geopolitical analysis, or do they risk playing into Russian narratives? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more coverage of international political developments. Until next time, stay informed and stay critical.